in. How's everybody doing? Doing okay? Can you believe we are already in week 11? That's hard to believe, isn't it? It's hard to believe. So you guys did some reading and some work for me this past week that had to do with feedback and different kinds of feedback, effective feedback, things like that. So I want to start with just this idea of formative versus summative feedback. What do you guys feel like if you had to define formative feedback, what would it be? What would it look like? What is formative feedback?
Is it more like informal, like assessments?
Yeah, so what do we mean by formative or informal?
I think of it more of like it's the everyday. They're not sitting down and doing one long assessment. It can be like an exit ticket or anything like that, something short that just assesses what they've known.
Absolutely.
What
So
they're
yeah, you're right, Madison. It can take place like in the middle of a lesson. It can take place at the beginning of the lesson. It can take place at the end of a lesson informally. So okay, thank you, Emma. Let's see what Emma just sent a message. Okay. Okay, so yes, formative feedback can guide planning, right? So what are some examples of informal or formative feedback or assessment? I'll get there eventually. What do you think? Madison, you gave me
like
one.
an exit ticket. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, the exit tickets.
Would that be like just observations, like assessing them through observations? Would that be one?
Yes, yes, absolutely. So what might that look like? If we're assessing them through observation, like how can we record that, or how can they show us that? What might it look like?
Maybe like discussion. And while we're having like an open discussion, we're actively taking notes on what students are participating in the discussion.
Okay. Okay. Good. That's one example. Good. How else? What else might it look like?
I
Sheree.
was gonna say that they could, using technology, they can go to the like smart board and interact by showing you what they
Absolutely.
learned during the lesson.
Right, right. They can go up to the smart board and manipulate something on the smart board. There's always the good old fashioned whiteboards where you can ask them a question, give them a problem, have them work it out on their whiteboard, hold it up, and then you're just scanning to see who's got it and who may still need some work, right? What are some other ways that we could observe and assess at the same time? You guys ever heard of anecdotal notes? So I used to do this when I was a classroom teacher, and my parents loved it. I would take every day, I had a clipboard, and I'd take a piece of paper and I'd fold it, in half. So I had like 4 boxes. Sometimes I'd do 6, just depending on the number of students that I had in my class. And each day I would write a group of students, like 1 student in each box. And all that day, everything we were doing, I would take notes specifically on them. What they were doing, what they were understanding, what they were still struggling with. Just take anecdotal notes. And then at the end of the day, I would cut that piece of paper and I'd glue it into their portfolio. So when their parents came and we sat down and I showed them their child's portfolio, they could see the things that they were doing and struggles that they were still having. And at the end of the week, when I was sending communication home, if they were still struggling, I could use that as a reference point as well. So it's intentional observation, right? Observation is absolutely a great way to assess informally, but it has to be intentional. What are some other examples of informal assessment? You guys are doing informal assessments in this class. You're submitting drafts of things. And Miss Subtle and I are giving you feedback, and then we're giving it back to you. We are informally assessing your understanding of task 1 or of the professional development plan, right? So letting students submit drafts and then, providing feedback on those drafts, that's another type of formative assessment. What were you going to say, Madison?
I was gonna say, and I don't know if it goes along with it, but one way that I've like watched my CE do it is like through warm-ups. Like she'll do a warm-up based on the prior day and kind of use that as an assessment to gauge if there's a need for re-engagement or if we're ready to keep going.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Because the one thing that you've got to remember is these assessments aren't effective. They don't do any good if you don't do anything with the data that you get from them. Right? So if you see that your students, like Madison's CE, is looking to see if there are any students that are still struggling with the content, and if they are, she has to re-engage them. And notice Madison said re-engage and not reteach. Bravo, Madison. I'm proud of you, because reteaching is teaching the same thing the same way. And if they didn't get it the first time, then you've got to figure out a different way to present that to them and re-engage them. So, but the important piece here is, and the big takeaway from that is, you've got to use that data, right? I mean, you've got to, when you see that kids aren't performing, or their level of understanding is not where you want it to be, then you adjust. You adjust your planning. You adjust your small groups. You may do targeted instruction and targeted interventions with kids. Okay. So am I frozen? Can you hear me? Okay, you guys there? I think I froze for a minute. My face was probably in some kind of weird, I don't know, kind of thing. I hope it's going to be on the recording, I'm sure. But the important thing is that you make adjustments based on the assessments that you do. So that's informal, formative assessments. Now, what is the difference between that and summative assessments? I'm frozen again. All right, I'm back, I think. So anyway, I don't know if anybody answered, but I didn't hear you. So what is the difference between formative and summative?
The summative is at the end, isn't it? It's like a
Yes.
9-week test or the EOGs, EOCs.
Absolutely. So summative is just what it says, and Emma put it in the chat. It sums up the learning, right? So it can be, something like Cherie mentioned, an EOG or EOC. It can be something at the end of a unit, an assessment at the end of the unit. Now, with a summative assessment, don't get caught up in thinking that it, is norm reference, that it has to be like an EOG or an EOC kind of thing, because it doesn't. A summative could also be a project with a rubric, as long as it covers the different pieces and parts of the unit that the students were learning about. Does that make sense, guys? So tell me a little bit about, Terry, I see your cutie up there behind you. Tell me a little bit about what you have seen in your observations, in the classrooms that you've been in regarding assessment. What are some things that you have thought, man, that's great, I'm going to take that with me, and some things that you were like, that's something I don't know that I would want to do in my own classroom. Anybody?
Sarah does or Musty does, she'll do like mini, I hate to call them quizzes, but kind of like mini quizzes. Like she'll teach a lesson and then give them like a tiny little quiz, like midway through, to see where they are before they go to their little test at the end.
So what
Which I
is
think is
this? What's this
effective.
quiz look like, Lindsay? Like, what is it?
There a lot of times she'll do like they'll be like oral, like
Mhm.
spoken, like she'll just talk to them, like she's quizzing them, but they don't really feel the pressure of a quiz because
Right.
she's kind of just talking with, because they're little, they're kindergarten, so she does really good about like gauging where they are through like little quizzes that they don't realize are quizzes, because she
Right.
makes them comfortable.
Right. Absolutely. Good. What about everybody else? What have you seen that's good that you think you might want to use?
In my clinical placement classroom,
Mhm.
my CE works with all the other 4th grade teachers, and they have their students take the STAR reading assessment,
Yep.
and then they use the scores on those assessments to separate the kids into their win groups. So they separate them based on like the scores and their abilities. So like my teacher will teach the lower level kids, and then like they're separated among the teachers based on
Yep.
what group they're in. So I think that's pretty cool that they include the whole entire 4th grade instead of just like
Yeah.
one singular classroom. And I feel like it might be a little easier to like teach that way too. That way you're not like trying to focus on 3 different groups in your one classroom, and you're just like have one group to like really focus and try to teach and everything.
Yeah, I mean, that's super efficient across grade level, because their ability grouping based on that STAR data. And then, so what the teacher can do is almost like targeted instruction for each of those ability groups. So yeah, that's great. And, it takes some work to make it effective across grade levels. So that's good, Bella. That's exciting that you're getting to see that and experience that. What else? Terry, I'm gonna put some pressure on you since you've been in the elementary school. What have you seen or used that you consider good assessments?
What I use or what they,
What have you seen or what have you used yourself that you think are good assessment practices?
I kind of use, well, Cahoots is a one that I use at the end of, on Fridays for, like Fun Fridays. Um, like for Wonders, I don't know if y'all know Wonders or not, but, at the end of the unit, we, well, each session I go and put in questions and see how many kids, it showed me on my end how many kids got it right and how many kids got it wrong. If a lot of them got it wrong, we'll go back and revisit that the next week.
Mhm.
And you know, I could use that one or uh, well, you caught me off guard. I did it only in second grade. I didn't
Yeah.
do I did that this I'm doing that now, but in
Right.
kindergarten I did like maybe something like a bingo game or something to see if they know their sounds or letters. Something fun.
Yeah. Yeah. It's something that's fun. That's like Lindsay said, they don't even know they're being
Right.
assessed. Absolutely. And you can do that. I mean, you can do that with middle schoolers,
Mm.
you know, to where they don't realize they're being
Like we
assessed.
did last week I started on clocks and that was amazing. They could write on their dry rate they on their desk clocks. And I told them like they drew a clock and I was like, where do you put where do you put here? They told me the 12 and then we did a 6. And I would have seen if they knew see what what
Yeah,
they know.
sure.
So that
Yeah.
was a type of assessment. I knew where to put the numbers in the minute hand and the hour hand. So they were just drawing on their desk and I was looking around, see who knew what.
Hmm. Yeah, and that's when it's good in situations like that when they're sitting in their space to circulate around the classroom, you know, and see what everybody is doing and see who may still need a little extra guidance um, to help their understanding. Good, good, Terry. That hearing that, you know, second grade that's the grade I love the most. I taught that for the longest time, and I love second grade. I love the kiddos and that age, and I love the curriculum. It's just a lot of fun. So
It's so much better than kindergarten. Now instead of doing everybody do like a word wall. So I'm doing like the Val Valley and I have
yeah,
a sound. I'm doing this. I haven't done well. I got it all cut out to put it up there now. I'm gonna do a sound wall like the blends
mhm,
and different. And then I have the shape of the mouth, how the mouth supposed to look. A kid with the shape of the mouth.
mhm.
So I'm having fun with it. I can't do that with kindergarten.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So let's talk a little bit, guys, about rubrics because that's another part of assessment, um, and it's an important part of assessment. I mean, you guys, you like rubrics yourself in your classes, right? Why are rubrics key to assessment?
Because it makes sure you grade all students on a level playing field and they're all being judged or graded by the same means.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You're using the same criteria to grade every student, right? What else is important about rubrics?
It gives clear instructions on how to complete the assignment or project for the students.
Yeah. Yeah. It lets them know, all right, so, you know, if I want to make an A or, you know, let's say a 0 through 3, you know, 3 being the highest. If I want to make a 3 on each category, here's what I have to do. Right? On each measure, here's what I have to do. Okay. So talk to me a little bit about um, rubric. Have any of you guys built your own or made your own rubric? Madison, I see you. Tell me about it.
I struggled because I'm in first grade.
Uh,
And so whenever I was like, because I sat down and tried to do it with my ed TPA that we're doing for Miss Subtle
Mhm.
right now.
mhm.
And I was looking at it and I was like, well, it makes perfect sense in my brain, but no first grader is going to come up to me and say, Miss Calloway, can I see the rubric? You know?
Right.
So I kind of had to learn that instead of like at that age, I feel like the rubrics for me to refer to.
Yeah.
And I just have to clarify that in the instructions for their actual work so they know what is expected of them.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right, Madison. When you're talking about rubrics for kindergartners, first graders, second graders, it's more. Now, that's not to say that you can't write a rubric because I used rubrics in second grade. So you can do that and you can write it in a language and in a way that they understand. But it has to be, straight to the point and not a lot of fluff, right? Because younger kiddos especially get lost in fluff, right? They're just trying to understand the pieces and parts and to read the words, you know. But it can be done, or you can write it like Madison, like you said, in a way that is for you specifically, but just make sure that the kids understand what the expectations are. Absolutely. Writing a rubric for the first time can be a struggle. There are, good rubrics and bad rubrics. I think in this class we've got some pretty good examples of rubrics for you guys in the tasks that you're working on specifically. So, and I guess in terms of creating a rubric, there are criteria that you need to keep in mind. Because there are different kinds of rubrics. There's a single point rubric, which is a met, not met kind of thing, which really can be more like a checklist even. And I know those are used quite a bit in pre-K and kindergarten, just to kind of keep up with letter recognition, letter sound correspondence, those kinds of things. Or, there are, more criterion referenced rubrics where there are kind of steps or stages. And the primary thing to keep in mind when you're creating a rubric is that kind of the overarching thing that you're trying to measure. So when you're thinking about how to make it and how to kind of start constructing it, start with, what is it that I want them to know, understand, and be able to do? Okay. And how do I want them to show me that? And then the ways that you want them to show you are the indicators, the measures in the rubric. Okay. Questions about that? Let me check the calendar real quick, guys, because let's see. Here. Okay. So I do want to tell you guys before I forget, and I'm gonna try to get you out of here a little early because I know it's Halloween. You probably got kids knocking on your doors too. Terry, I saw your little dog take off. I thought somebody's at the door. Yep. The next time that we are supposed to meet is 2 weeks from today, which is November 14th. Okay. However, I am going to be out of town that night. So what I'm going to do is we're going to be talking about global awareness. and, you know, some of the ways to teach global awareness. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to record my meeting from the other group the week before. I'm just going to stick that link in there for you guys to watch for class that week. Okay. So we will not officially Zoom, but I'll have a link there for you guys to watch. And then you can email with any questions. Okay. And I'll send out a message to remind you guys about it a little later, a little closer to that date. All right. Well, happy Halloween, everyone. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your evening. And I'll see you later.